Good morning, Mimosas in the Morning. I'm Leslie.
And I'm Holly.
And believe it or not, we are not having technical difficulties
so
far this morning.
No technical difficulties.
It's like miracle this morning. We're pretty excited after the past 2 weeks. So thank you all for joining us.
And we're kicking off this week of getting to know our Armed Forces Insurance and Military Spouses of the Year. And we're starting out with the Navy. And I have a little song. Because we're kicking off, right? We're anchoring away.
Woo! I love it.
Are you ready?
She's taking her jacket off too. So
Yep.
Oh, thank you, Holly. You're so kind.
You gotta lose the jacket.
I gotta lose my jacket. I'm all
Oh my goodness. I love it. You've got PT gear on. This is great.
Well, just so you know, her doing that for you this morning, she's sitting out here in a jacket. It's like, it's really humid,
hot.
like 80 degrees. And she's like, oh my gosh, it's hot.
I'm dying. I have a little sweat going on over here.
The spirit. I love it. Go Navy.
Well, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And just if you could do a little introduction and kind of a little background on yourself, please.
Sure. Michelle Norman. I am the AFI Navy Spouse of the Year for 2019. And I'm just thrilled to be here. And let's see, I've been a military spouse for about over 23 years. I have no idea where the time went, but I've known my husband a lot longer than that. We met at the University of Texas, Hook 'em Horns, I had to say that. And we got married a few years later and started this crazy Navy adventure. You know, we lived all over the world. 11 duty stations, and most recently settled here in the Norfolk, Virginia Beach area. And during that time, pre-kids, I was a civilian environmental engineer at 3 of those duty stations with the Navy, and until my daughter was born. And since then, I have been a stay-at-home mom and volunteering with all my husband's squadrons and ships, military organizations, and my kids' schools. So
that's my past life. Pre-kids, the past life.
Pre-kids, kids. Exactly. It is a very significant difference between the two, but blessed either way.
Absolutely.
So we have a few questions, and I just want to make sure that we hit everything.
Thank you.
What is your current platform? I know what your platform is, but I want to share with everyone else. And I gave Leslie a little bit of background.
Yes.
Because we were following you long before, and we just didn't realize it was the same Michelle until recently. And I was like, what?
Well, thank you. So my platform is I'm advocating for military families who have children with special needs and their access to an appropriate education. All of our military children should have access to high quality education, right? Obviously, because of our military lifestyle, we move around every 2 to 3 years. There's a lot of inconsistency between school to school, district to district, even state to state. But for our children with special needs, those challenges are exponentially more complicated for them. And I'll explain a little bit about it. There's impact aid funding that is given to school districts for each of our military children. And there's actually another pot of money for our kids with special needs that come with individualized education plans, which are called IEPs. And so we're noticing a trend that a lot of our children with special needs are not receiving the minimum education level that is required by federal and state government regulations. And I'm not talking high quality, I'm just talking the minimum. And we are noticing that a lot of school districts just kind of want to wait our families out and not provide the support and services that they need. And that causes a huge impact on military readiness as these families are now battling for the education of their child just to become a productive, independent member of society, which we want for all of our military children. So that's kind of what I'm advocating for.
I love it. So I had told Michelle yesterday that I'm in college, and so I'm in my last class for my minor, and it's communications. And I got an excellent review, an excellent paper, because I wrote a paper basically about Michelle and the IEP and everything about it, but I used it and transferred it back over into how communication, when your goals and when you're working together and collaborating, you're making everyone's life better.
Absolutely.
And so, you know,
Absolutely.
thank you, Michelle, for inspiring me to dig a little bit deeper and kind of, you know, look at something in a whole different way and maybe put it back into my life. And you're blessing me. So thank you. I got an excellent grade. My professor even sent me an email saying she loved the way I went with this. And I'm like, thank you, Michelle.
I appreciate that. It's definitely
for our children.
Well, do you find, Michelle, that also, you know, just with the impact aid funds that people come in, you know, in addition to what they're supposed to get for, you know, your kids with the IEPs, that those are even going to the correct schools and to the right communities? I know in Hillsborough County, there's been a big issue with that, and how, you know, these outlying schools that aren't right beside the base aren't necessarily getting the same funding. So.
Absolutely. You have hit the nail right there on the head. That is the problem, and this is what we're seeing. There's a big parallel between this issue and the privatized military housing issue as far as transparency and accountability. Because a lot of these school districts receive this money and it goes into a general fund. So how do we know where this money really is going? We would hope that they're going to our military children, but there is a lack of tracking of this funding. And when you're seeing your children not getting the services that they came in from another state, or some of the supports that they're just trying to make it complicated, and maybe a lot of our families pull to homeschool, it is concerning that this money is there for them and there is no way to ensure that it's actually going to them.
And, you know, I think one of the sad things I've seen, and I'm sure with your advocacy, you've seen this too, that a lot of military families are like, well, why do I fill this out? Because I don't even know if the money is going to go to the right
That
place.
happens.
Absolutely.
Because then we even get emails saying, please fill this out, please fill this out. You know?
I think we're sometimes held hostage, you know, in order to have that parent conference meeting, you have to be there and fill out that blue federal card. And there have been groups of military families that do have children with special needs that have refused to fill it out, because if they're not receiving the services, why should the school district receive funding for their kid? And so it's a very complicated issue, and it's not a sexy issue as some other things that are affecting some of our military families. There are definitely some ideas and ways that I'd love to advocate using the AFI Spotlight, which thank goodness has given us a platform and gives us that voice to represent these military families. One of the things I would like to do is just educate our military families. What really are your child's educational rights, especially in special education? We have a great resource, Military One Source. It's a fantastic website, and I would love to add a component to that website so that families can access it and just look at data on these school districts specific to special education. It's not hard because it's already on the state agency websites. So we just need to bring it in and have it all in one location so that our families can feel empowered on where they send their kids next. It really makes a difference when you're going and looking at different PCS stations. Can they handle my child's needs? The second thing I'd like to do is work with a little bit of reforming of EFMP and doing something that the Marines do really great, is adding special education attorneys to each of the military services. Because right now we have no one to go to for specific legal advice. And so if a school district is not in compliance, who do you go to? And many of these young enlisted sailors, they can't afford an attorney. So the Marines got it right, and I just want all the other branches to
No,
come.
we were talking about this today because I was like, I don't know what you're talking about.
But good to know, right?
I have something that someone doesn't have.
And that is really shocking. After 20 years that I've spent as a Marine Corps spouse.
Thank you, Marine Corps. Yeah.
Taking care. They're taking care of their families.
I know that we have this, and I know this is the reason why. And she's like, we'll talk about it later, Holly. I promise.
Yes. I will. I'll talk to you offline on that. But the last thing, you know, to really work on this platform is to cultivate those partnerships with the legislators, like we talked about, and talk about the transparency and accountability, and make sure that what do we do when a school district is not in compliance or when they're not accredited? Do they still get this money? And let's have this deep conversation about maybe the impact aid funding should follow the child and not necessarily the school district, because that really would
I love that.
opportunities, homeschooling, private schools, faith-based schools, you know, there are other avenues if the public school is not in compliance. So no one really wants to talk about that. It's definitely a tough conversation, but I think that our families feel like they need a voice and they want to be heard, and they want to know that the military service branches care about their children. And oftentimes we feel our children are a burden in the educational setting. And I think that making some of these small, easy steps, that's the good news, is that these are not huge ideas that are going to take a lot of money. It's just taking those first steps to implement them. And I think it will impact military readiness, it'll impact military retention, just knowing that their kids are taken care of and they can be an important part of our society for what our spouses are serving and fighting for. We can do it. We can do it together. Thankfully, through the Mil Spouse community, there's been so many amazing people that have, you know, mentored me and already blazed a lot of these trails, but we're going to just keep at it and hope to make change together.
That leads us to the last question, like who and what has like influenced you? I mean, you said you've been spouse for 23 years. I am sure there's been maybe more than one.
And it's probably been on a positive and negative.
Yeah.
Mostly positive. I have been very blessed in this Navy adventure that we've had, and a lot of amazing folks. I have to say, of course, my daughter is the biggest person who influenced me. She is an amazing, bright, brave 15-year-old girl that has a lot of challenges, but seeing her flourish after all the efforts that we have gone through to help her get an appropriate education keeps me motivated. My husband, of course, you know, he influences me. He has this, you know, great moral rectitude to keep me focused on what's important in life. And also there's some great military spouses. I do have to do a call out to Jeremy Hilton. He was a military spouse of the year 2012. He has done so much for our community. Right. And he really should be in the top 30 influential military spouses, in my opinion, because he was so involved and he's given us a voice. And it has been hard because I think a lot of people don't realize just parenting a child with special needs is exhausting. It's hard for us to organize. It's hard for us to just get together and support each other because we're so tired. And so when someone really steps out of the bounds and can sustain that, like Jeremy, it has really set the stage for people like me and other wonderful spouses that I hope I get to see all in DC to continue his efforts and just be the voice for our children. So there's been a lot of folks. And then, of course, just the children. You know, I'm thinking this fight that we're doing is for, like, not just Marissa, but it's for Maddie, it's for Richard, it's Alexi, it's Gavin.
It's for my son, Diego.
Need a voice. And so that's what keeps me going and motivated, and they influence me to do the right thing.
Well, I think what you're doing and that level of accountability that you're adding to, that's really just non-existent in the past. And I think that's amazing. And I'm just in awe of you and what you're doing for our community, for our kids. And I think it's amazing. Congratulations on your
recognition. On your recognition.
And just for everything you do.
Yep.
Yeah, it's been a privilege and an honor to be here.
So I have to say, I cannot wait to meet you because, you know, we're a Marine Corps, you're a Navy, and
I love you.
Oh, Jay.
Oh, because we cry a little bit here. Thank you so much.
I cannot wait to give you big Holly lovins because, you know, I talk about myself in the third person.
Let's give her a chance.
Thank you.
That's it. Yellow. There's your goal.
Oh, wow. You guys are fancy on that end. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so looking forward to meeting you, Holly, and the other 5 amazing spouses. We are going to have so much fun, and I feel like together. It's going to be great. Sorry.
And remember that Military Home Base is bringing you home one base at a time. And we'll see you next Tuesday with another
Next Tuesday. Absolutely. Have a wonderful week, everyone.
Right. Cheers.
Cheers. All right.
I think that went well.
That one was good. She's kind of amazing.
Told you that.
Yeah.
Okay, please tell me you're gonna end. Because see, last week it didn't end.